Alright, so we're back, and we've still got our zombie chasing us. He's moving around just fine, but it looks a little weird the way that he's just sliding and not actually animated. So this week, we're going to go and fix that. I'm going to try to keep this video as quick and painless as possible. I know last week's got a little bit long, but I think we'll be able to make this one go pretty quick. First things first, we want to go back to Mixamo. Now, if you followed along with exactly what I did last time, you should already have an idle animation for your zombie ready to go. If you don't already have an idle animation, that's okay. I'm just going to search for zombie in our animations tab here. And remember, these packs are useful, but they have a lot more than we need, and they're probably going to be more trouble than they're worth downloading the whole thing right now. So we're only going to need a few animations today, including zombie idle, some sort of a zombie attack, whether that's the punching, or this zombie kicking, or one of these straightforward zombie attacks. Long story short, you have some options, so pick whichever zombie attack you want. Right now, I'm going to grab this one here. Since I already have an idle animation, I'll go get my attack animation now. And everything about this looks just fine. I don't need to change any of these settings right now. So I'll just go ahead and hit download. I already have the skin. I already have the zombie in the game. So downloading the skin again is really kind of pointless and just going to take up more time and space on my computer. So I'll just change this to without skin. All these other settings can remain as they are, and then I'll download that. Next, I want some sort of a zombie walk. If you want your zombie to be fast, you could go and find a zombie run, and you could turn the speed up higher than what I'm going to do. But this classic looking zombie walk here should do just fine for what I want. Now there is one setting we need to change here. You can see the way that we're looking at this animation right now, the zombie is actually starting to walk out of the frame. We can actually see him moving across this tiled floor here. Now we don't want that in a video game version of this character, because if the animation is actually moving him across the world at the same time that our code is moving him across the world or across the terrain, then he's going to be moving in a really weird, stuttering manner that isn't going to make any sense. He's going to like take 2 steps forward and then he's going to teleport back, all while still constantly sliding at the player. It's going to look bad, take my word for it. So all we want to do to fix this is check the in place box. And now this may look a little funny here, where it seems almost like he's standing on a conveyor belt or a treadmill and walking in place. But inside of our game, this is going to work much better since we already have the locomotion worked out with the nav mesh controller. So now that we have our walk picked and in place checked, I'm fine with these other settings as they are. I'll click download again, and I'm going to keep this on without skin and hit download one more time. Now let's go into my Finder, or I can click on one of these arrows next to the downloads and hit show in Finder. And here we have our Finder, and we have our zombie attack and our zombie walk FBX. And now it's time to get those into Unity. So I'm going to go back here into my new zombie stuff folder to keep all of this organized. And here I already have the idle animation packaged with the skin. Now I'm just going to go back to my Finder. I'm going to select both of these and drag them in here with everything else. Now these two aren't in folders because they aren't bundled in with the skin. They're just their own little prefabs here, but you can expand them. And this little icon here with the play button is your actual animation. I'm going to rename these real quick because all of these animations are coming in as just mixamo.com. So I'm going to click on the animation. I'm going to click edit. And then I'm going to come down here, and where it says mixamo.com, I'll just change the name to walk. Now another thing that we want to do for all of our animations is we want to tell them to loop time. If they don't loop time, they'll just play once, and then they'll stop, which if we want the zombie to continue walking at us, and the animation only works once and then stops, he'll end up just sliding awkwardly again. Same thing with the idle animation. He'll move around for a little bit, and then he'll just freeze still again. So for all of these, we want to turn loop time on. And for some reason, when clicking loop time, that changed my name. So let me go fix the name again. Walk with loop time, then let's hit apply. All right, and for some reason, it seems like it really doesn't like me changing 2 settings and then hitting apply. So just change the name, hit apply, select loop time, hit apply, and that should work. So let's do it that way when we go to our attack animation, which once again is named mixamo.com. That's going to confuse us later on if we don't change it now. So let's just change this to attack. Scroll down. Okay, I think I figured it out. What you need to do is you need to type attack and then hit enter. And now I can select loop time. And now I can hit apply. And it will save all of that. So the real key here is to type this in and then hit enter and then select loop time and then hit apply and everything will work fine. So let's go do it real fast for our idle animation. Now my idle animation is tied to this image of the zombie right here. But after expanding it, I'll just do the same once again. Click on the animation, click edit. I'll name this one idle, hit enter, check loop time, and then apply. Now with all of those done, what we need to do next is make an animator controller for our zombie. So here's our zombie, and right now, if we look at his animator, we can see where it says controller, it says none. That's going to be a problem, so we need to go and create that animator controller. The easiest way to do this right now would be to come down here to where your assets are, control click, and then go up to create. We've used this menu before, but this time we're using it to create an animator controller. Be careful not to select animation or animator override controller. These are similar but different, so animator controller is what you're looking for. I'm going to call this demo zombie AC. You can just call yours zombie AC. Now I can either go ahead and just double click on this and it will open up my animator. If you already have the animator tab up here, you can just select this and then select your animator tab and you should be looking at that one. And you should see a few things in here already. And if you slide around, you should be able to find another one that's hiding a little bit of ways is exit. So entry is when this character spawns into the game world or when the game starts and this character is present, they're going to start by acting out whatever animation is connected to this green entry block. Exit, we actually don't need to worry about too much. We're not going to be using this frequently, but if we wanted a way to stop using our animations, we could simply have them go to exit. But we're mostly going to have our animations transition back and forth in between each other. And any state, there are times when you might not want an animation to flow specifically from any one other animation or from the entry. You might just want an animation to be able to start at any time no matter what else is going on, and that's when you might use the any state. But we're not using that today, so we'll just kind of put these off to the side, because we really don't need them right now. What we will do is we'll bring in our idle animation first. That'll make our life just a little bit easier, because the first animation that you bring in is always automatically attached to the entry state. And to help you see how this is working, I'm going to take my animator tab, and I'm going to sort of push it over here to the side. And I'm going to try to make enough room that you can see both of these at once, at least for right now. But before this animator controller will talk to this zombie here, we need to connect them. So I'm going to click on zombie idle so I can pull up his information in the inspector. And then I'm going to click and hold on my zombie animator controller, and I am going to drag it over here into his empty controller slot. So now if I actually go and select the zombie and the animator controller that's actually attached to him, you'll see we've gone from the entry state to the idle state, and this is the playtime bar running through here. You can see that it's looping. So he already looks a lot more alive than he did before. Now when he's walking at us, this certainly doesn't look right and feels a little bit silly, but when he's standing still, this looks pretty good. Okay, so with our idle animation working, now let's go ahead and bring in our attack and walk animations and get those hooked up and working together. So I'll jump out of play mode, then I'll go into my attack prefab and drag in the actual animation, and there it is. I'll do the same thing with the walk animation. And I'm going to make the animator a little bit bigger again so that we can really focus on what's going on here. So we have the idle state. This is where we come in from the beginning. The zombie is idling by default. That's just how we start. Then we also have attack and walking, which I'm just going to organize down here, making a little bit of a triangle. And what I want to do is I want to make it so that my zombie can transition from standing idle to walking. So to do this, first I'm going to select my idle animation, and you can see it's glowing blue now. Then with it selected, I will control click right on top of it, and I will select my first option, make transition. When I select make transition, I get this little arrow that follows my cursor around, and all I want to do is drag this line and arrow over to walk, and then click on walk, and now these two things are attached, specifically with a path that goes from idle to walking. Now we're going to add some code to the script that we already made for our zombie that's going to tell him when to switch from idling and take this path to walking. But to do this, we need to create a parameter that our code is going to manipulate. So in our animator tab, you can see we have layers and parameters up here. Make sure that you're on the parameters tab, and then click this little plus to make a new parameter. This parameter is going to be a boolean. You don't have to worry about the others for right now. So click on bool. So this bool we are going to name is, all lowercase, and then walking with a capital W. So is walking is our boolean. When is walking is true, we're going to move from idle to the walking animation. And when it's false, we'll transition back. So to actually set this up here in the animator, I need to click on this little arrow that leads from idle to walk. And then I need to click on the conditions here, which right now it says my list is empty. So I click on the plus to make a new condition. And it brings up the parameter that I already have set of is walking. And by default, it's set to true, which is exactly what we want. So when is walking is true, we can follow this path from idle to the walk animation. Now there's one important other thing we want to look at here, which is this little checkbox here that says has exit time. Has exit time determines whether or not we need to finish our idle animation before taking this path to walk. So if has exit time is checked, then the idle animation has to completely finish before it can start the walking animation. Now that actually isn't a good thing, because if our zombie is in the middle of the idle animation, but then we get close enough that he's supposed to move towards us, he could start moving towards us and still have to wait a whole second or second and a half before he actually starts walking. So in that time, when this animation is finishing, he'll still be idling and he'll just be sliding awkwardly across the ground the way he is now. And while a second or a second and a half may not sound like a long time, it's long enough that it's going to look weird and feel wrong in your game. So we want to uncheck has exit time on this transition. Now we're going to do basically the same thing for when we want to get back to idling. So we can go and control click on walk after selecting it, and then click make transition and attach it back. Now I'm going to click on this arrow that transitions back to idle from walking. And once again, I'm going to turn off has exit time. And then I'm also going to go down and add the condition of is walking, but we want to go back to idle when we're not walking. So all we need to do is come over here and change is walking from true to false when we want to go back to idling. Next, let's set up the attack animation. It's really going to be almost the exact same thing. But first, let's create a new parameter, because we don't want to start attacking when we should be walking or idling. So we need a new boolean. So I'm clicking on this plus and going to bool. And this one I will call is attacking. And I'll hit enter, and that one is ready to go. So now let's select idle, control click, make transition to attack. I'll click on the transition, turn off has exit time, and then when I click this plus, you can see it defaulted to is walking because that's the first parameter on my list. But now we want to change this to is attacking, and true is just fine because we're going into the attack animation. Now let's select attack, control click, make transition, back to idle, select this transition back. Now this time, I'm actually going to leave has exit time on, because if the zombie stops attacking in the middle of the swing, it could look really choppy and weird. And it's okay for him to completely finish his swing before going back to standing still. That makes logical sense and will look okay in our game. So we're going to leave has exit time on for this path back from attack to idle. But we still need to add the condition that when is attacking is false. That is when we will go back to idle. Now we're almost done, but we want to be able to, if the zombie is walking, go straight into his attack animation. We don't want him to be walking and then have to go to idle to then start attacking. And we also don't want him to have to go from attacking into idle to then walking. We don't want him to constantly have to jump back to the idle position to attack or walk. There's times when this might happen, but there's times when it could look bad if this is his only option. So what we need to do is make transitions back and forth between walk and attack. Let's start by clicking on walk, control clicking to make a transition over to attack, and then we'll click on our transition. On this one, we will turn off exit time, and we will, as always, add a parameter, and this time we will say if is attacking is true, then we will transition from walk to attack. Finally, let's control click here and make a transition from attack over to walk. Select the transition. Once again, when we're transitioning out of attack mode, we're going to say that we want him to finish the attack. So I'm going to leave has exit time checked on this one. And again, add the condition. And one other thing we're going to do differently here is we're going to use two conditions. So we're going to say that if is walking is true, and I'm going to add another parameter here, if is attacking is false. So both these things have to coincide. We need is walking to be true while is attacking is false, and then he will stop attacking and go back into the walking animation. So with this kind of looping path, our zombie should always respond in a way that looks pretty good. Or he will once there's code that actually tells these what to do. But right now his code doesn't know how to talk to the animator controller yet, so that's what we're going to fix next. Before I go into MonoDevelop, it's a good idea to save my scene, because I've done a lot of work here in the animator controller, and I don't want to lose it. So let's jump into that same zombie script that we were working on last time, and see what changes we need to make. Now don't worry, this is going to be easier than all the code we wrote last time. Much easier. So let's take a look at what we need to do. The first change I need to make, I'm going to go into the else, and I'm going to go and actually add this right above the agent is stopped equals true. So I'm going to give myself a couple lines here to work with. And first I'm going to type in zombie AC, or actually, let me go make sure that I get this right, because my original was zombie AC, but this one is called demo zombie AC. So I'm going to be typing demo zombie AC, because that is the name of this animator controller. If you named yours zombie AC, you should be typing that. Or if you named yours Frank or Susan, you know, use Frank or Susan. But make sure that whatever you're typing in here, where I'm typing in demo zombie AC, is the same as whatever you named your animator controller. So demo zombie AC dot set bool with a capital S and B, then inside of brackets is attacking, all one word with just a capital A, and that actually needs to be inside of quotation marks as well. And then after the quotations, but still inside of the brackets, we put comma, false. And of course, end this in a semicolon. Now you'll notice that right now, this is actually in red, and that's because I forgot something important. We should really go up to the top, and up here where we have our transform player and our public variables. So this new variable is going to be a public variable, and after typing public, we're going to put in animator. And then after animator, we will simply hit space and type in the name of our animator. In my case, remember, it's demo zombie AC. And then end in a semicolon. And that should fix our little red problem down here, because now it knows. So that's going to get rid of the red down here, because now this line of code understands how to get to the animator controller that I'm referring it to. So our next line will be similar, but only a little bit different. In fact, if you want to make your life easier, you can copy this line that we just typed and then paste it down below. And all that we need to change is attacking. I'll leave the is and just change the attacking to walking. So what this is telling our animator controller to do is, if we're not walking and if we're not attacking, that it should set those switches to false, which will then send our animator controller to the idle animation. Now let's look at attack mode. I'm going to put this up above agent stopped, so I'm going to give myself a little space, and again type zombie AC, and once again I can paste in one of my previous ones and just make a few small changes. In this case, I do want it to be is attacking, but we're in attack mode, so I want to set is attacking to true instead of false. And when is attacking is set to true, then that should set our animator controller into the attack animation. So it makes sense that this would happen in attack mode. So these two new lines of code are telling our zombie that if you're not in attack mode or move mode, you're idling. This one says if you're in attack mode, you're using the attack animation. So all we need to do now is tell the zombie that if you're in move mode, you should be using your walk animation. And to make this easier on myself, I'm just going to copy these two lines of code that I already wrote up here. And I'm going to paste them in right down here in the move mode. And all I really need to do is make one small change. I do want is attacking to be false before we start walking, but I definitely want is walking to be set to true before we use our walk animation. So I'll change that false to true. And if I've done everything right in both the animator controller and the script, this should be ready to go. Let's do a quick save. And I say ready to go, but we still need to do just a little bit of hooking up. Now the code should already be on here, the script you should have attached last time. And you can see we already have the demo zombie animator controller attached from a little bit earlier in this video, but we still want to make sure that the code knows exactly which zombie it's animating. So the easiest way to do this is to click and hold on your zombie from the hierarchy and then drag it over here to the empty zombie AC slot where right now it says none animator. And if we drop that in, it's going to know which zombies animator it's supposed to be impacting. So real quick, let's save the whole scene, and let's go see if this works. Alright, you can see we have the walk animation playing right now. And if I get out of range, he stands still and idles. Let's get in range and let's see if we get the attack animation to trigger. Okay, the walking is working. The attack animation isn't triggering, and at the moment, I'm not sure why. If I go down here and I look, I see it's trying to attack, but you can see I'm cranking up these, not errors, but warnings. It says, is attacking does not exist. So I think I must have a typo somewhere. Let's go take a peek at the animator controller. Oh, well that would do it. So in here, it says, is attacking with ATTACKING. And down here it says, is attacking, or more like attacking, because there's no C in this part. So that must mean that in my code, I missed a C. It looks like in all of mine, since I copy and pasted them, I copy and pasted something improper. So let's make sure that right before that K, we have a C, so we're spelling attacking properly. And I think that's all of them. Let's save it, and let's try it again. Alright, he gets in range, and now he's swinging away. So if your code doesn't work on the first run, don't get too frustrated. Go back, take a look. You can come down here to the console and take a look at any errors or warnings that might be popping up. You can see how easy that was to fix. It was one letter in a few different places, and once it's fixed, the zombie is doing exactly what we expect. Walking when he's in range, attacking when he's in attack range, and just idling when we're not close enough for him to notice. Now, if we had more time, the next step here would be to give the player health that the zombie can take away from when he attacks us, and things like giving the zombie health and us a way to damage the zombie. Unfortunately, we probably won't have enough time to go much further with this quarter, but this is a really good start, and there's no reason you have to stop here. There's plenty of guides and tutorials and information online that you could use to push this scene even further. So make sure to share your code with me on Schoology, and then check out the next video on Schoology so that you can see how to build and finish this scene into a game that can play without having Unity installed and can be played on any computer. So you're almost done. Keep going, and good luck with it, and have fun.